Coming up next on The Health Hustle.
And it wasn't until I was on a Instagram Live, 50 other people on this Instagram Live with Mark England from Lifted. And I had this big moment. I had just broken up with my girlfriend who I had an engagement ring with, and we were supposed to get a house together and this whole thing. And so I was like heart-struck, and I started recognizing through my therapist opened up the door of like, oh yeah, you're matching your mom's extreme emotions with Lisa. Like you're finding that, and that's comfort, but it's unhealthy because you're coming back to the trauma and it's not healed. And I'm like, whoa. And so I'm on this Instagram Live with Mark England, and he just picks me out of the crowd. He didn't know me at the time. He just picks me out of the crowd and goes, bam, you. And I go, okay, cool. And he says, tell me what's going on. And I start telling him about, what's going on with my mom. And, like my mom has such extreme emotions, and it's really like wrecked me throughout my life, and just really angry. And he said, write that down. I said, write what down? He said, my mom has extreme emotions. And I was like, no problem. My mom has extreme emotions. And he goes, all right, tell me how that makes you feel. Like, what's the emotion? I'm like pissed off, angry, frustrated, like steaming mad. And he's like, yeah, I can see that. And he's like, again, give me a scale. I was like, dude, nuclear. Like, is there something higher than a 10? I'll take that. He's like, I can understand that. And he goes, do me a favor. Take out your mom and put in you. And it was like a sledgehammer across the face. I have such extreme emotions. I'm the one on social media in front of 50 people talking about my emotions and being super inflamed. Oh, just like my mom. Just like my mom. And that opened the gates for me of going, oh, I can only own this. I'm the one who has ownership over this. I wanted to point at my mom where there's nothing I can do about the past or about her, but I can change my perception of the past and this current reality. And I can go from disempowerment to empowerment, from victim to survivor. And when I did that, then I took control. Then my life completely took a different direction.
What up, y'all? Corey here. On today's episode, I got to bring on a fan favorite. We actually originally recorded an episode over a year ago, episode 96, if you want to check it out. And it was one of the best episodes I feel like I've ever done. People loved it. I got a lot of feedback from it, and it was so much fun. And so I actually had him back in town here again in Austin as he was checking out one of my events, and I got a chance to bring him on the show again. And so we get into all sorts of things from what he's learned over the past year. He actually had a pretty big life-changing moment. I'll just leave you that with a teaser of something that happened literally moments before I brought him on the show. Some of the other things we get into on this episode are how he even got into coaching in the first place, finding meaningful work, the curse of progress, finding clarity in what you're doing with your work and your business, the difference between high in your chest and low in your gut, anxiety versus depression, attachment types, overcoming a trauma loop, avoiding soft talk, becoming aware, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. Like I said, he was a fan favorite before, and so we did our best to try to recreate what we did last time, and I hope you enjoy it. Check it out. One last thing, if you're a health or fitness professional and you're having difficulties getting leads, one of the most common reasons that I see this is not having a well-defined niche. If you go to the link in the description, I have a free 3-step process that walks you through exactly how to get clarity on which niche is best suited for you and your business. Without further ado, let's go. Austin is not Texas in a lot of ways. You know what's interesting about Austin is that it's the same place where somebody will drive a Tesla, but they'll have a shotgun in their frunk. You know what I mean? Like that to me feels like Austin.
in the frunk, dude.
Yeah, you know what a frunk is, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
It's just so funny to think about that.
Joel Cochran, welcome to the show for round 2. You're a fan favorite, and I'm excited to do this.
Number 2, man. Let's go.
And I don't know if I ever read you this, but after our episode, I don't remember how long ago, but it was the last time you were in Austin, here from Reno, as we were just discussing. I got a message from somebody. She left me a voicemail, somebody that listens to the show. I won't say names, but she said, I listened to your podcast with Joel Cochran and I was totally blown away by the content. What y'all spoke about, his ideas, your comments, your feedback to it all, it relit a fire to push me through with my business and get past the mental blocks I'm having growing my business. And so I just want to reach out and say thank you very much. I'm grateful for you and the podcast, what you're doing and how you're reaching out to people. It's touched my heart and it's fired me up.
Ooh-wee.
That was from our last podcast episode.
It sounds like we did something really, really special.
I don't know what it was, but I hope we can somehow recreate it here today.
Oh man, it's gonna be, it's gonna be. I wouldn't say better. It's just gonna be different, man.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
It's a different time period from that podcast to this podcast, and the way life moves and shifts and changes, man. It's such a beautiful thing.
I don't know if you remember this, but I forgot to hit record last time we did this.
Oh, are you kidding me? That was the best part. we both were like deep into it.
Yeah.
And then we both were like, best day ever.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, man.
We used it as leverage.
1,000%.
Because so for anybody that doesn't know you, your catchphrase is literally best day ever.
That's right.
And so that was like a good jumping point of, wow, this is a really good opportunity to express something that you live on a day in and day out basis.
1,000%.
I did for sure hit record this time, so we're good this time.
We're sure.
I'm positive. The
Okay.
blue button's on, so we're good. But let's give people a little backstory. So who are you? What do you do? What are you up to now?
Yeah.
And we'll slowly work through the journey of lessons learned because you've had some interesting changes in the recent. Are you open to talking about some of this stuff?
1,000%. It happened right before I walked through the door, man.
Yeah.
A massive change in my life. So.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll leave that as a teaser. But
Teaser.
before we do,
Yep.
what do you do? Where do we start?
My name is Joel Cochran, born and raised in Reno, Nevada. I've been a coach pretty much most of my life. I ran a events company back in 2011 and 12 before CrossFit was a big thing. And sorry about that, putting it on airplane mode. Back in 2012, I started an events company, ran that until I opened up 2 CrossFit affiliates in Reno. Over 600 members, full-time staff. I think our highest grossing month was 110,000 in revenue. And I say that because it leads into what I do now, which is I'm a business development coach for Best Hour of Their Day, where I help affiliates with their business to be able to grow profits, for them to be able to continue to do what they do best, which is help change and inspire lives. And I also run a business called Proclivity. I'm a life coach. We do nutrition and life coaching. And that's also something I do. And I love both of the things I do. I'm incredibly blessed to be able to have a business that I can work on, and then to have literally like a dream job where I'm paid well. I'm on a credible team. I get to influence affiliate owners all around the world. It's stellar, man.
What were some of the stumbling blocks to be able to get there? Because like when I reflect on my own journey of figuring out that path that you're talking about, of to be able to be, because that's the dream, right? To be able to do meaningful work with people that you actually genuinely care about, and to wake up and be excited about what you're doing. But a lot of people don't feel that way. And a lot of people have to go through a lot of stumbling blocks to get there. And I know I sure as hell did.
Yeah, that's right.
It's taken me many years to get to where I'm at today,
Yeah.
and to live my, as I call my average perfect day. But give maybe people some of the stumbling blocks to be able to figure some of that stuff out.
Yeah. I've been really, really, I want to say blessed, but also focused on, I know what I want to do. I knew my passion, and there wasn't going to be pretty much anything that's going to stand in the way of that. And I can tell you, because there's a lot of coaches, particularly in this Austin area, it just seems like there's so many different coaches and people who are so passionate about helping people. It's hard. And you're going to hit roadblocks. Like, it's going to happen. Yet, are you willing to continue to put in the reps? The small reps, the big reps, the hard reps, the easy reps. Are you willing to keep on putting in the reps? Because most coaches want it now. They get really excited, And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm helping people do this and that. And I recorded my first podcast. And it's like, how many podcasts have you done? What do you think? What's your number?
You and I will be about 160.
Okay. 100. I just clipped 145. Right. And so you know, and I know, you have to put in so many reps. Are you willing? And it might not be until episode 375, right, that you are all of a sudden worldwide and monetizing and all of these different things. Yet people will get down on themselves after episode 10. And it's like, what? Did you think that this was going to be easy? And I've been in this space now running businesses for well over a decade. And now, Corey, I'm sitting there going, I can choose what I want to do. I make enough money where I can choose. I can take on a client. I don't have to take on a client. I can come to Austin. I don't have to come out. I can move here tomorrow. And that was started decades ago of being able to go, I know what I want. And I'm going to keep moving towards it. And I wasn't going to fool myself it was going to happen tomorrow. I was just going, can I keep going? Just one more step. And the process of being able to grind it out. And you, since the last time that I was here, you have put a lot of reps in on your feet in terms of mileage. You were just kind of getting into it. You're recovering with your knee, right? There's some stuff that you're getting ready for in terms of a race. And now we see on the Instagram all the time, you're chopping away, and you took me up the gates of hell. What was it called?
That's exactly what it's called. It was called the gates of hell.
The gates of hell.
That's exactly what it's called.
And damn near took me right to hell.
You know, it's funny to think, I actually didn't even look at it like that. There's kind of like this curse of progress that I think a lot about, is that once you reach a certain point, you forget what it was like to be before you got to that point. Because that's actually literally the perfect example of that. Because I was actually legitimately texting you and sending you videos of me running because I was so frustrated by the fact that I couldn't run because I was having knee pain and injuries and all the like learning things that have to happen to be able to be a decent runner. And then I took you on a run the other day that about killed you. And and like I didn't even think about it like that, of like, oh shit, I actually was recently coming to this guy for advice. And not to say that I'm better than you at running. I'm not. You've definitely done far more distance runs than I have ever done. And so like you're by far a better runner. But it was interesting to reflect on that, of like, oh damn, like I've come a long ways that I didn't realize.
I was talking to my brother the other day, and I was like, dude, Corey damn near killed me, man.
Yeah.
Like funny. I had to gut it out, where before we were like running around around the river. What's that path?
Lady Bird. Lake.
Yeah, we're just running. It's like cruising. It's like no big deal. And this time, like, I went through the gates of hell.
Yeah. For anybody listening, I took Joel out to more West Hill Country, Austin area where, it's not flat. And I did warn him pre-hand that I was like, this is going to hurt a little bit.
Dude, but it was humid, and it was all of a sudden the sun came out.
Yeah.
Like it was cloudy, but then all of a sudden the sun came out, and it was like, oh, this got hot real quick, dude.
Yeah.
And I just came from 38 degrees in Reno. So I'm not acclimated to heat at all. So I went from 38 degrees to the other day, what was it? High 80s or low 90s or something?
Super humid though.
Super humid.
Like 99% humidity.
Yeah.
So when did you figure that out for yourself? So you seem to have been lucky enough to have clarity around this direction that you wanted to go, but it couldn't have always been that way, right? Like when did you start to figure that out? And maybe you did.
Yeah. This is something that is quite interesting. I'm going to connect the dots here in terms of professional and personal. My job as a life coach is to help people connect like mind and body. And there's such a huge disassociation. We tend to be in a state of tons of education and not a lot of integration. And integration is allowing the body to settle in with what you just learned, what you just heard, what you just went through. But we want to go to the next thing, listen to the next podcast, get the next certificate, right? Go to the next event. Yet we haven't integrated anything. So we're in this constant process of gathering information, and we're actually not feeling it. And one of the things I always tell people, and I've asked this to hundreds of people, I say, hey, have you ever had a gut feeling about something? And they go, yeah. And I go, was that gut feeling ever wrong? And they go, no. I've yet to have somebody say, yeah, I had a gut feeling it was totally wrong. Yet, right? Maybe there's somebody out there. My point to this is I had a gut feeling. Every step of the way, I trust this process. I'm supposed to be here, and I'm going to move this way, without knowing that 10 years later, after I started an events company doing CrossFit competitions, that I'd be working for best hour of the day and coaching people all around the world. I didn't know that. I can't foresee that. We can paint our visions, and I've done it many times, but trusting our gut, trusting that feeling of being able to go, man, where's that feeling at? Is it high in the chest? Is it deep in the stomach? Is this really pushing me towards something? Yeah, it is. And the more I've trusted my gut in business, the more success I've gotten. A massive success by being able to trust my gut, not necessarily go into my head. That's where I've been tricked, is trying to live in my head and figure the thing out instead of just feel it out. But when you feel it out, what usually happens is that it's going to be a really hard conversation, or it's going to go against the grain, or you're going to have to break from a pattern. And that could be really hard for people to be able to go, well, no, I want to stay in this lane, so I'll figure it out in my mind to kind of curve back into here. And then I'll just end up in the same place a year from now, 6 months from now, it could be 5 years from now. And they just find themselves constantly in the same place because they're not getting off the road. They want to stay on the same road every single time and try to switch lanes instead of, no, you just need to get off on the exit. And you have to trust your gut to be able to go, man, I'm going to get off on this exit. I don't know what this is going to be, and I don't know where it's going to lead me. But I just know I can't stay in this lane anymore. I've tried it all. I've tried to drive with my lights on, my blinkers, left lane, right lane, middle lane. But I'm just going up and down the same interstate every single time. I got to get off. I got to veer off, and you have to trust your gut.
You said high in your chest versus low in your gut. Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit? One, how do you recognize something like that? And also maybe even before that, where did you earn or learn that, right? Like, was it a personal experience or did somebody teach you that?
Yeah. So when I was 19 years old, I started getting symptoms of a ton of tension in my chest. And I didn't know what it was. 19 years old, like drinking beers and going to college. But I had this huge amount of pressure on my chest. And I didn't know, like, what's going on? What is this feeling? I don't like it, but it sucks. And after suffering with crushing anxiety, which I didn't know what it was, for over a year, I would wake up every single morning and feel like there was an elephant on my chest. Every single morning, to the point that it drove me into depression, to the point that it drove me to going, I don't know if I want to live. Like, where thoughts of suicide were very real, because who wants to live in this crushing, super narrow thought pattern? Nobody does. And it wasn't until I started getting help, started opening up, getting a therapist, starting to work through and understand what was actually happening with me. And so that was the first time I really had a big body experience, was the crushing feeling of anxiety. And that's what really pushed me into the realm of doing life coaching. As for most coaches, most people do what they love to do because they had a life-changing experience, whether good or bad.
Do you mind sharing what was happening to you? Why were you having that experience of anxiety?
So I was in a relationship that wasn't aligned. And what I tell people, I can't remember who told me this, but it has stuck with me ever since. Anxiety lives in the future. Depression lives in the past. Anxiety is high in the chest. Depression's low. So depression is a sinking feeling. It's usually not a higher feeling. Anxiety is a higher feeling, raises into the chest because we're in alert. We feel like there's a threat outside the door. We don't know what it is, or outside the cave, but there's signals coming that, man, it could be really dangerous. So we're thinking already ahead to protect ourselves. And since now we aren't living in a cave, we can create scenarios. It's ingrained into us. The body wants to keep us alive. So it's going to seek out threats any way it can. And for me, it was this relationship. It was not aligned with me. I knew that this girl wasn't it. And I ask this to people quite often. I did just the other day to a guy who was in a relationship. He was talking about it for a relationship he was in for 4 or 6 years. And I said, I want you to be really honest with me. I want you to tell me, when was the moment you knew she wasn't right? Be honest with me. 4 months in. 4 months in, and he stayed with her for 6 years. And he had crushing anxiety. And being able to connect the two, right? And we could go into, hey, why'd he stay in it? Why'd I stay in it? We can go into anxious attachments, right? And my childhood with my mom and not feeling safe. And so I was trying to attach to a healthy feminine energy, knowing that that actually isn't the person I truly want. So I was actually more attached to the relationship than I was the girl. And so I wanted the safety of the woman, but I actually didn't want the woman. But I didn't know how to decipher that. But something in me was like, this isn't it. So there's this constant tear. And so I was in this off and on relationship for 2.5 years with this girl. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who can relate. This kind of off and on. I know I'm not supposed to, and I really don't love this person. I just know it, but I can't be alone, or I'm scared to pull the trigger, or whatever the case is. And that was me. And that's where that anxiety came in. Add in alcohol, of trying to mask and cope, not exercising, all the other physical things that's going to upregulate a person, get them to a point of, narrow mind thinking, trouble sleeping, all the physical things that we work on a ton to stay in a downregulated state. I wasn't doing either. So on the physical side, I wasn't doing it. On the mental side, I wasn't doing it. And I was constantly thinking, man, I shouldn't be here. I should change this. I should change this. So all my fear was in the future, which was causing the anxiety.
What are the attachment types again? There's anxious attachment. What are the other ones?
Avoidant attachment and secure attachment.
Okay. I remember actually last time you were in town, we talked about this. It was actually on a run, ironically, around Lady Bird Lake. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about attachment types because you fall on, I don't know where you're at now, but you did fall into, was it more anxious attachment?
Yep.
Because it's something, oddly enough, I am lucky that I've never dealt with. Mm-hmm. I have pretty secure attachment. Mm-hmm. Is a big part of that your upbringing in terms of your parents? Yeah.
That's what they say. And I'm not a psychiatrist, right? I studied this occasionally to be able to know first and foremost for myself.
Sure.
And then secondly, for my clients, to be able to bring the awareness is my number one key. I'm not saying this is what it is or what's not.
Sure.
But hey, let's ask the question.
For sure.
And be able to see. And so when it comes to anxious attachment, at least in my realm and my world, is that I didn't have a safe space at home. I had a dad who worked 2 jobs, so he wasn't there. I had a mom who was highly emotional and could get to the point of verbally and physically abusive. I had a brother that I didn't have the best relationship with. So when mom would go crazy and would flip out, hit us, tell us that we were stupid, and many other words I don't need to say here on this podcast, what would happen is both my brother and I would go separate and go into our rooms. And instead of co-regulate, we would just self-regulate. And so we would self-regulate in this space by ourselves when we want to actually co-regulate in a safe, healthy spot, right? I recognize your emotions. That was really scary. Mom got really mad. Let's regulate together. And so what it created was this, I want that safe attachment, right? And so I would have this anxious attachment of, hey, I really want that safe spot, but I don't really want you. But then when I didn't want them and I started pulling away and I started being more avoidant, what did it create? A ton of emotions. Oh, just like my mom. So now it was reminding me of the trauma. And so I would loop back in because I felt like, oh, I need to fix this because I was unable to fix it when I was a child. I couldn't. I was a child. How am I supposed to fix my mom, but I knew that I didn't want to feel this way with my mom, that I wanted to feel safe. And so now I'm seeing this replication in this relationship that I'm in of a very highly emotional woman due to the fact that I'm pulling away. She's losing safety and she's wanting safety. So to call that safety back, she's getting really emotional. And now I loop back into it because I want to come in and save the day. I want to be a rescuer because I learned that from my father. My father's a big rescuer. Nope, I'll just handle it. I'll just take care of it. So then I have this pattern of being a rescuer. So in and out of these relationships without knowing. And without knowing, we just go right back in, right back in. And then we get into victim mentality, meaning, oh, it was them. They did this, right? They said this. And finally, we're like, no, F them. I'm going to get out of this. And I just go find the same trauma again. And I think it's going to be a different person, but it doesn't happen that way until we start finding a secure attachment and being able to go, I feel these emotions coming up. I feel that I really want to attach, but where is this coming from? And then when we start getting curious, that's when we can start detaching, going, oh, I see this trigger. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to back off this. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have these different techniques or patterns to keep me within my own boundaries, because boundaries are about staying within and not going outside, not keeping other people out. No. You have to stay in, because we get in trouble when we open the gate and we go into the wild. That's where we get in trouble, instead of inviting people into our safe boundary. But we have to not be tempted to jump out, whether it's our trauma from the past, somebody else that reminds us of that, or anything of the like.
The imagery I always get when I think about this attachment stuff is that of a child in which, let's say you're at a playground and it's a mother and a child. And if the mother isn't there, then the child is fearful to go out and explore and to experience the world because they don't have a safe space to go to. That's the imagery that always comes to mind for me. I've obviously am very lucky that I've always had that sense of feeling that when things go bad and wrong, because that's what it is, right? It's like when you go out to explore, I use the example of playground, but the world is the exactly same thing, right? It's when you go out into the world,
Yeah, that's right.
it's scary because you don't know what's going to happen. That's just human nature. But knowing that there's somewhere you can go to that's safe and protected is so fundamental to a healthy human. It's not to say you're not a healthy human, but that's the imagery that comes to mind when I think about this.
Beautiful imagery. You couldn't said it any better. And this is where like people will kind of get into like back and forth about raising a child and be like, no, they need to learn on their own. And other people are like, no, they need to make sure that there's a safe person. And research shows time and time and time again that if there's a safe attachment to the parent, I mean, the parent allowed them to co-sleep and be there for them, and so on, that they go, just like you said, oh, I can go out into the world and I can get totally rejected because I have a safe place to go back to, where I didn't have a dad who he wasn't there around, and then I had a mom that was super volatile. So of course I'm going to have attachments of like, no, I can't lose you because there's some safety here, even though I know I don't want to be with you. You're not the one. But I was holding on to that because what was I going to go back to? Until I did my own self-healing journey and then go back to my mom and help my mom heal. Now there's a space with my mom and I where I wouldn't say it's maybe similar to your parents, right? Where it feels a lot more safe. But I went back and I really created a much safer space and boundary for my mom and I to step into, which has been huge. And one of the hardest things I've had to do and one of the most rewarding.
What about your father? How's that relationship?
My relationship with my father has gotten exponentially better as well. My dad, there was nothing about my dad that was like, he was dangerous, he was this, but he was just...
Wasn't there?
Yeah. He was a buddy. He was a friend. He wasn't there to guide me. He wasn't there to challenge me or sit down and have a deep conversation. He wasn't there for that. It just wasn't. But he was there. You know, he was a good dad, but not a guide, not a leader. And a lot of people that I talk to about this, because I work with a lot of people who, if we really track it back, it comes back to mom and dad and that secure and safe place that they did or did not grow up in. And what I find is that we have to go back. We have to accept our parents for how they were. And then we have to be able to forgive them for what they weren't. And then when we do that, we then can come into a space and recognize that, oh, wait a second. I can step in as the adult here because my parents have broken versions of themselves from their parents that never got healed. Because a lot of people are like, no, they're my parents. They should be this way. They should be the support. They should be the love. And it's like, for what? Why? They have parts of them that when they were younger that got hurt bad. And anytime there's a remembrance of that, they go right back to being that 5-year-old, that 8-year-old, that 12-year-old that was hurt by their parents. And it's going to be a reflection of you because you're their DNA. So now there's imagery of their own selves that they're looking at and going, I never healed that and that. I hate that part and I can't stand it. And there's going to be more and more traumas that can happen until you come in and go, nope, no longer. And I can actually be your guide, Mom. I can be your guide, Dad. I can ask you the hard questions that you never asked me. And you can answer them or you don't have to answer them. I've done it with my dad multiple times. Mm-hmm. I've asked him, hey, Dad, tell me, what are some family secrets that you've never told us? And he didn't want to answer it.
Really?
Said, nope. He said, well, if I told you the family secrets, they wouldn't be a secret anymore.
That's what he said?
That's what he said.
Was that just a way to deflect?
Yep. Because no one has been deep with him. I know his dad for sure was not deep with him. His wife, not deep with him. So here's his son asking some really deep questions. And some things he answered straight up and other things he didn't. And I wasn't mad at him for it. I understood, as I would with anybody else I work with, is being able to go, I get it. That's scary, huh? I totally understand. I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to be offended by it because there's something about that that's really scary for you. That's okay.
Has he opened up about it at all? No. Okay. I mean, it's tough for that generation, right? Like I definitely have empathy for that. I think it's true for my parents as well. Yeah. They definitely grew up in a generation where emotions they just weren't considered.
Right.
Like they really didn't matter in a lot of ways. I mean, we're definitely very lucky to live in a generation now where it is more of a conversation and we are more recognizing that it has profound impacts on your health, your other relationships, your business, your ability to thrive in the world. Like they matter a lot. I guess we're putting more importance on it than they used to. I could see how that'd be challenging because I'm just thinking about it because I definitely have challenges with my parents as well. And I honestly don't even know how I would approach that conversation. Like that would be really hard.
Dude, super hard for most people. And I tell people the first thing you do is write it out.
Yeah.
Like you put it down on paper and I tell everybody to start off with this every single time. My outcome of this letter is one sentence, not multiple sentences. What's your one sentence? So when I sat down with my parents, I didn't just sit down and have a talk with them. No way. Do not do that. Yeah. Whoever's listening, that is not the way to go because you will fall right into a trauma loop. You will get offended. They'll think that's an open conversation because we're just talking and you're going to leave there feeling so hurt and frustrated because you're going to open up in vulnerability in a very vulnerable spot. And if your parents aren't ready to receive that, you're going to feel really hurt. So you're going to close back down and you're going to be like, screw that. I'm never talking to you again. But if you write it down on paper, and I've done this with so many of my clients, if you write it down on paper, nobody interrupts you when you're reading. Nobody, right? Maybe somebody that's very narcissistic might stop you, but even some parents that are very narcissistic that I had my clients go and like read it, I'm like, did they stop you at any point? They're like, no, they just listened. Because there's something about sitting and reading in which nobody's going to interrupt. What it also does is it puts you in control. I've already thought about this and I've already thought about my outcome. And so my outcome for my parents was to create a healed and loving relationship with my mother and father. That was it. The outcome of this letter is to create a healed and loving relationship with my mom and dad. Then I went into it. And then I constantly reminded, of course my mom was offended when I talked about, hey, you physically and verbally abused us and it was really hard on me. hey, I'm going to set a few boundaries here. That I'm just not going to participate anymore. I'm not going to participate in any physical abuse of me, myself, me, my wife, or my kids. I'm not going to participate in any verbal abuse for me, my wife, or my kids. And when it comes to politics, I'm not going to engage. Right?
That's a big one.
That's a big one. That's a big one. And so, of course, she was offended and she felt like she was a bad mom and she wanted to get really upset. And I just came back to my outcome each time. Hey, Mom, I just want to remind you that the outcome of this letter and why I'm here is to create a healed and loving relationship with you. When it's short, you guys, you have the ability to be able to come back to it. If it's elongated and it confuses you, you best believe it's going to confuse the other person, particularly if you're coming out of left field. Keep it short, keep it concise. This keeps you on track and it keeps everyone else who's there on track. Hey, just to remind you, we're here to be able to create a loving and healed relationship. That's it. So let's stay on that path. And it's okay to have emotions, but the outcome when we leave this place is to be on the path of healing and love.
Did I ever tell you when I sort of did that with my parents? Did I tell you this?
I don't know if I remember.
I don't think I probably didn't. I sort of did it by accident. I don't know. I remember where I learned that concept of writing it out and then reading it to my parents. I don't think I got as much out of it as I could have. Not that it was all about me. Obviously, it's about them as well.
Right.
But mine was more a letter about the things that I appreciated about them.
Yeah.
And it was for sure a very emotional thing because, like, in my family, we're not good about that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not good about, like, sharing how much we love each other, appreciate each other.
Mm-hmm.
We're not really great about that.
Yeah.
And so I wrote out a whole letter and I read it to him just like you just talked about.
Yeah.
And yeah, it did change the dynamic where they just sit and listened. And the funny thing that came out of mine when I did it though, was that towards the end of it, we're all crying. Wow. It was a great moment. And then my father said something to me that kind of really instilled in me what I've always sort of known, but it really like painted it very clear for me. He said, "I'm proud of you," which I'd never heard him say those words before in my entire life. Wow. And it hit me really hard. But he followed it with basically like, don't let this be an excuse to like slack off or slow down or something like that matter. Right. And it further reminded me of most everything I do is for my father's approval.
Yep.
And then I heard a quote recently and somebody told me, I think Obama said it. I don't know where it actually comes from, but the quote is essentially, most things men do is for their approval's father or to make up for what their father hasn't been able to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's me.
That hit you. Dude.
It's like, that makes a lot of sense.
Wow.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that, right?
Huge amounts.
Is so much, and I can only speak from a man because I'm a man. And I feel like a lot of men feel that way of living up to rather their father's approval or trying to make up for their father's downfalls in a lot of ways. Yeah. It's really interesting.
It's hugely interesting. And it completely aligns. Again, those trauma wounds when not talked about, and huge kudos to you for being able to go do that with your dad. And that changed him too. That's the thing I always tell people, like, that changed them. They shifted as well. That you gave them the space that they never had with their parents to be able to have that deep conversation. Yeah, it was a little awkward for them and so on and so forth, but they will remember that to the day they die, that you had that conversation.
It reminds me of a book I just finished by Terry Crews. You familiar with the actor?
Yeah.
He's had a lot of, you probably never read his book, but he's had a ton of trauma in his life. But he did something very similar where he made the mistake of calling his mother about an incident when he was younger where he was in his teens and his mom came into his room and she's like, "Do you got hair down there?" And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Do you have hair down there?" And he's like, "Yeah, why are you asking? Put your pants down." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Pull your pants down." And Terry, young teen, he pulled his pants down and showed her. And then she just like walked out of the room. And he'd completely forgot about this memory until like later in his life, and he was going through therapy and this memory came back to him. And he was like, it was a control thing for her. She was essentially showing dominance and control of him.
Wow.
And like that profoundly impacted him.
Yeah.
And at some point in his life, he decided to call her and talk to her about it.
Wow.
And after the conversation, it did not go well as you mentioned,
Yep.
because he didn't write it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember how long, but it like after that happened, like they went a long time without talking, no communication. It really damaged the relationship. And he eventually ended up writing her a letter, basically saying like, this is out of love. This is me trying to heal. This is me just talking about something bad that happened. In the book, he reads the whole letter that he wrote. It was great. And then she wrote him back, and there was actually some healing there of her like, I'll always love you. I apologize, even if we disagree on something. But yeah, I think the writing is important for anybody listening. Is like that is a big component of it for sure.
Massive. It's the biggest healing point. At least in the work that I do. There's plenty of ways to be able to heal, but we don't give enough space to what's going on. Like I said, in terms of education and integration. I say this quite often. We think fast, we talk fast, and we act way too slow. When we should be thinking slow, talking slow, and acting way faster. And we don't make, and I use this with my team, hard yes or hard no. We're going to make a hard yes or hard no. And there's times when they're kind of swaying one way or the other, and I go, okay, hard yes or hard no. Do you want to do this? Yes or no? There is no maybe. There is no explanation. It is either a yes or a no. And when we do that, we move on quickly. When we allow too much soft talk, and I think we talked about this in the last podcast, when we use too much soft talk, ambiguous language, it doesn't actually move us anywhere. It confuses us even more. And so we have a saying with our team, is it a hard yes or hard no? Tell us right now. And when we go, it's a yes. Okay, cool. And then we move forward. And we have an agreement. Like if it's hard yes, we move forward. And it's a yes. If it's a hard no, it's a hard no. And we can always discuss and so on and so forth. But at least we know one side or the other. And we just tend to, in our society, we're too worried about what the no or the yes is going to mean. You're not going to know. But you got to make the choice.
Yeah, something I've been using with Michaela, my girlfriend, lately is, and I learned this from somebody else, I'm no guru, was like asking how important something is to them. Is like, because we get in our disputes and we disagree on things and we can't come to a resolution. And for me, I always fall back on like, for which one of us is this more important to? Like, is this like a 10 out of 10 in importance that I go to this event or to make dinner tonight or whatever it is like how important this is? Because if this is 10, okay, I'm in. It's yours. This is your fight. I will take to you in this situation. But you have to clarify is like, is this important to you? Because if it's not, then what are we doing? But if it is, it's like, okay, I'm in. I'm here.
I love that. But well, and you gave it a scale too. And this is really, really important. We talked about emotions, right? And how important emotions are. We tend to downplay emotions, meaning that, well, I'm a little worried. No. You're either worried or you're not worried. Don't little worry me, right? I'm worried. Now tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you? Because now we give it a ranking. Man, I'm 10 worried. Okay. So now we know that this is really going to be affecting you. Because anytime that we're above a 6, this is something that either is repetitive, meaning this is something that's happened time and time and time and time again, or this is something that's really emotional. Like right now, it was something really traumatic that just happened, right? You just watched your dad hit your mom in the face. Like it's nothing you saw before, but now all of a sudden, like, whoa, this really worries my mom about my mom's safety. And when we have that and we know that range, and we know that, hey, if it's above 6, this is either really traumatic or this is something that's repetitive. Now we can go, okay, how do we pull this down, this worry? And so then we can come into a space which is going, I can't remember who I got this from either, but do I want to be helped, heard, or held? Do I want to be helped, heard, or held? And so I'm worried about my mom, and her safety. Man, do you want me to hold some space just to be able to hear you out? Yeah, man, can you hear me out? Totally. You just want to be heard. That's it. And if I just give you the space to be heard, that 10 might come down to a 6, right? Or do you want to be helped? Hey, man, is there something that you would like me to hear out and then help you through? Yeah, man, because I'm really lost in this thing. Okay, awesome. Can you tell me more? And then I'm going to give you a few suggestions. Is that okay? yes, we might go again from a 10 down to a 5 or a 4. And sometimes what we need to do is just hold space. We might physically need to hold somebody, or we just need to get in the mud with them. Because too often we tend to extend a stick to try to get people out of the mud, when really we just need to go, oh, you're in the mud? Cool, dude. Let me take my shoes off, man. I'm going to sit right next to you.
I love how gender plays into that as well, too, because it reminds me of a very pertinent point in my life. I remember this is where I learned that concept of listening. Like, there's another way it would be expressed is like something about, do you need to hear or do you need help? Something like that. But it was the same concept, but it was in college where there was this group of girls sitting next to me, and I was happy to hear their conversation. And one of the girls was complaining about her boyfriend. He kept trying to fix everything. She's like, I didn't want him to fix anything. I just wanted him to listen. And I remember as a male sitting in that environment, thinking in my brain, in my stupid young 20-year-old brain, that's all I ever did was try to fix things.
That's right.
That's what men do, right? Is like problem, solution. Yes. That's what we do. When in reality is often that's not what somebody else needs.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's probably the reverse for them, right? Is like as a female in their brain, they're like, oh, they just want to be heard. They just want to listen. Maybe not. Yeah. Maybe I want you to actually like step in and help me with carrying in the groceries or whatever. I don't know, name your thing.
But 100%. And depending on where we're at with our emotions, depending on our past experience with emotions, that might change or shift depending on the person. Because some people, I know plenty of women who want to come in and just help because they actually don't know how to hold space for their own emotions. And that tends to be more a masculine thing. I don't know how to feel my emotions. So I just want to fix it to be able to actually get away from it. And it's actually a fear mechanism for most men. I don't know how to hold space or feel emotions, and that's really scary for me. So I want to move away because we control what we don't trust. And that's something that has hit me time and time again with people that I've worked with. We control what we don't trust. If I don't trust my emotions, I'm going to try to control the situation to be able to manipulate my way out of feeling that. I don't trust myself, so I'm going to control the external world and everything around it. Or I don't trust my wife, or I don't trust the government, and so I'm going to control it all as much as I possibly can. And that doesn't mean that we don't have some type of control. If you can look at the weather and go, it looks like it's going to be a little bit rainy. Okay, I'm going to bring a jacket. That is some type of control because you're not trusting that the weather is going to hold up, and that can be okay. When it becomes a pattern of constantly looping around to try to control something, this is where we get in trouble.
We control what we can't trust. That's amazing. And as you said that, I've been sitting here thinking about that in different areas of my life. I'd be curious for you as well. Like, what are those areas for you that you have tried to hold control onto because you don't trust? I mean, where have you recognized it?
Man.
Because I believe you. I think that's, I've never thought about it like that. So I'm glad that you shared that. So now I'm sitting here thinking about all the things that I do hold a fair bit of control over. Like for one of them for me is for sure my schedule, for sure my mental space in terms of like who I spend time around. I mean, honestly, that's probably the biggest one for me if I'm just thinking out loud. It was actually brought up last night at the event that you attended with Katie. Is she was mentioning to me that she's like, it's amazing how you can get so many high quality people to come together. And I looked at her and I said, you know, what's interesting about that is I actually have a lot of personal challenges with that because I know myself as a very judgmental person. I'm very high judging. And I think a big part of that is because I don't create space for people that I don't believe are just high character in a lot of ways, and I can read people pretty quickly, and so I just don't even waste my time with it. And so it's a very judgmental, and I battle with it because sometimes I feel like it's a lack of empathy. But as I was talking to Katie, she's like, no, it's actually a good thing. She's like, why would you want to waste your precious time on people that aren't providing some sort of value to you back if you're pouring into them? I was like, that's a really interesting way to think about it. And so that is for sure something that I do hold a lot of control onto is who, and this is going to sound fucked up, but it's like who I spend time with.
Yeah, big time.
I know I do that, and I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some degree of control there that I'm trying to hold on to, and it's probably my mental piece.
Yeah.
But
100%. And usually control comes from fear, right? There's some type of fear. I don't want to feel the thing. I don't want to end up in the same situation. I don't want to whatever. And so usually in that
well, that's totally what it is then.
with that sentence, it comes back to like, what's the fear, right? Because I'm going to control to stay away from the fear
Totally.
of whatever it may be.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Because there was a large portion of my life when I was working in healthcare as an OT where I didn't have any control over what patients would walk through the door that I had to see in the clinic.
Dude.
And I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were so many people that I saw in the clinic that were just victims.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, the way that a healthcare system is built is that, especially in the insurance-based model, is that so many of the people, we'd call them frequent flyers, is they would come back again and again and again because they didn't actually care to get better.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't actually there to heal. They didn't actually give anything about the providing care that they were getting. They were there because a doctor wrote them a script or
that's right.
whatever it was.
Yeah, that's right.
And I hated that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's a huge part of why I'm so controlling about it now.
Yeah. I will tie that in with, it seems like, even just from what you explained with your dad, it seems like he has some type of higher judgment kind of
For sure.
capacity. So we tie in that we learned that emotional patterning from our parents, and that got ingrained. And until we bring awareness to that, we cannot change it until we realize, oh, that's right, I'm just like my mom and dad. The thing that drives me crazy about my mom or dad, oh, that's me. And until you get that awareness, you can't do anything about it. You'll just keep pointing and projecting at your parents or your kids because they're going to be the closest resemblance of you. And it holds up a mirror every time it happens. And you go, man, I just don't like that he does that. And I did this just to my marketing director before I even came here. She was talking about a lot of stuff with her mom. A lot of stuff got brought up, and I started reflecting back to her and reflecting. And she was like, I can't. Because she initially was going to come and hang out and watch this whole thing. She was like, I got to stay back and I need to process this. And so she went on for a walk. And these are the tough things, guys. Like, when you become aware, you're awake. There's no going back to sleep. And it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, but it's going to feel really damn uncomfortable. It's going to feel really uncomfortable. This is the importance of being able to have coaches or support, really good counsel, like you said. And I agree with Katie. Having really good counsel is essential. Like, there should only be 5 people or less that you will actually bring your problems to. You should not be talking to anybody else about your problems, because you will get inputs that are not filtered through what you want. By surrounding yourself with those 5 people, you're like, no. I trust these people. And so I will hold their regard, their counsel very high. Beyond that, oh my God, talk to somebody at the bar about this and that. Maybe every once in a while you get lucky and somebody drops you like a nugget. But majority of the time, they're going to veer you off in a direction that isn't actually true to who you are.
And don't use social media. That doesn't seem like a good place to get your advice about problems.
Yeah. Unless it's this podcast, and then of course you're going to want to watch.
That's true. If we cut a clip out of this, definitely listen to that.
Yeah,
but so I want to do what as podcasters do, and I want to circle back to, we started this giant rabbit hole with you getting advice or talking to a therapist about some of these challenges that you had. What happened after that? Like, what happened once you started figuring out like all these things that were going on with your parents and the anxiety stuff that you were dealing with? Like, what happened from there? Is that how you got into life coaching, or what happened next?
Yeah. So that was, I was 19 years old when I first started getting therapy. It took a decade. Talk about repetitions, you guys. It wasn't, I got into therapy and I was like, oh, and I realized all these things. No, it was, I got into therapy. I myself started the affiliate and doing that whole thing. So I was helping thousands of people with their physical health, and some of their mental health as well. But it wasn't until I started hiring coaches and hiring more coaches, and they were opening doors for me and they were bringing awareness to me, that I started going like, oh crap. And it wasn't until I was on a Instagram live 50 other people on this Instagram live with Mark England from and Lifted. And I had this big moment. I had just broken up with my girlfriend who I had an engagement ring with, and we were supposed to get a house together and this whole thing. And so I was like heart-struck, and I started recognizing through my therapist opened up the door of like, oh yeah, you're matching your mom's extreme emotions with Lisa. Like you're finding that, and that's comfort, but it's unhealthy because you're coming back to the trauma and it's not healed. And I'm like, whoa. And so I'm on this Instagram live with Mark England, and he just picks me out of the crowd. He didn't know me at the time. He just picks me out of the crowd and goes, bam, you. And I go, okay, cool. And he says, tell me what's going on. And I start telling him about, what's going on with my mom. And, like my mom has such extreme emotions, and it's really like wrecked me throughout my life, and just really angry. And he said, write that down. I said, write what down? He said, my mom has extreme emotions. And I was like, no problem. My mom has extreme emotions. And he goes, all right, tell me how that makes you feel. Like, what's the emotion? I'm like pissed off, angry, frustrated, like steaming mad. And he's like, yeah, I can see that. And he's like, again, give me a scale. I was like, dude, nuclear. Like, is there something higher than a 10? I'll take that. He's like, I can understand that. And he goes, do me a favor. Take out your mom and put in you. And it was like a sledgehammer across the face. I have such extreme emotions. I'm the one on social media in front of 50 people talking about my emotions and being super inflamed. Oh, just like my mom. Just like my mom. And that opened the gates for me of going, oh, I can only own this. I'm the one who has ownership over this. I wanted to point at my mom where there's nothing I can do about the past or about her, but I can change my perception of the past and this current reality. And I can go from disempowerment to empowerment, from victim to survivor. And when I did that, then I took control. Then my life completely took a different direction.
Damn, man. That's huge. We are, unfortunately, like super short on time for this podcast interview. There's a lot of things I want to dive into that. But instead of that, what we're going to do is we're going to fast forward through that.
Yes.
I think that if anybody wants to listen to that, we covered part of that on the previous episode.
We did.
So pause this, go to that episode, and then come back to this one, because we're going to do an update on where you're at with Proclivity.
Yeah, man.
So Proclivity is Joel's baby,
Mm-hmm.
business that he's been running for a while now, and some things have changed.
Some things have changed, man.
Do you mind sharing?
Absolutely. You guys literally, I would say 1 hour before I came to this podcast, I finalized my separation with my business partner. And I did this in 2 weeks' time. From the time that I decided, it was a hard yes or hard no. And liquidated all my assets, went from 3 offices to 1, 5 employees, doing very well in revenue. And there was a situation that was happening personally in her life that was starting to affect the business and affect our partnership and trust. And as soon as that trust was shooken, I could have hung out. I could have stayed back in the loop. I could have said, well, maybe you should work from home, or we could shift or switch. What I had to do, what I got to do was go, no, this is a hard no. And I ended up losing $20,000 to $30,000 on this. They weren't necessarily in the position to be able to pay out of the debt that we did have, that we were on track to completely pay off. And so I had to take everything that was in our savings, all of our capital, and liquidate it all. And now I'm back to zero, like literally $0 in the bank account.
How does that feel?
It feels, right now, I feel still some tension because I literally did this just an hour ago, and it's good. Good. Let's move forward. Now what's next?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we've talked about this best day ever. Best day ever isn't because the weather's great, because I have tens of thousands of dollars in the bank account. Best days ever is saying, wherever I go, whatever happens, I make my own weather. I hope it's hard today. And I will make something out of this. I will make this a good rep. And today was an incredible rep to take. And it was hard and it was difficult. Yet the reward in this is being able to, and this is where a lot of people miss the mark, Corey. Celebrate yourself, you guys. Joel, I'm so damn proud of you for being able to pull the trigger and do what's best, not only for yourself, but also for Emily. And yes, it cost you some money and a time and some heartache, yet this was the right move. And it shows your leadership and it shows your strength and it shows your capacity to be able to grow into what is next to come. And the more reps that you get in like this, the better leader you become, the better podcaster you become, the better husband that you'll be, the better father that you'll be. And by celebrating myself publicly right now on this podcast, what I said to my conscious and subconscious is, good, you did great. Now I can let the tens of thousands of dollars go, the complete emptying of my bank account, the drop of this 3-office, like growing business to go, cool. Now what do we have? What's next? Because I know for sure, Joel, whatever it is, you're going to get through it.
I went on a run with Joel yesterday, as we alluded to earlier in this episode. And I can safely say, man, you have handled it very well. And you were no question hurt by the matter. But I think that the way that you addressed it was great. I think you've obviously matured a lot and have had enough challenges in your lifetime to recognize, like, this is, as Ray Dalio would say, just another one of those. And that's just a way of saying is like, there's ups and downs.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is right now, and this moment may be a down, but it's going to spiral upwards afterwards. But
yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thank
Just
you.
want to acknowledge that.
I receive it.
Thank you for being on the show. Joel Cochran, Proclivity. What's your plug? Where can people find you?
You can go to proclivity.co on our Instagram. You can go to Joel Cochran _ to follow me. If you want to check out Best Hour, if you're an affiliate owner out there, head to besthouroftheday.com. Check out what we're doing over there. It's incredible work with affiliates. We're partnered with CrossFit. We're getting bigger and bigger every single day. So either or, if you're an affiliate or you want to dive into life coaching, you want to do a mixture of both, I would love to be able to chat with you.
If anybody wants a 3.0 version of this, because I know they will, because we could have gone for 5 hours.
Easy.
I feel like we literally just tapped in.
Yeah.
And I apologize to everybody listening, but time is a value, and so we got to respect that.
That's because I was late, guys. Let's just put it where it is.
Well, you had a difficult conversation with your marketing director, so
marketing director and my past business partner. It was like twofold right then. I was just like, what's happening right now? And I got a podcast to go to, and I'm like, there's nothing better than coming with pure raw emotions of like, this just happened. You know, literally just happened. I just said goodbye to not my business partner, but also my friend.
Yeah.
Like this is, it's done. And here I am, you know, and I appreciate you holding space for me on it.
Is there anything you'd like to say to your ex-business partner as things move forward?
Oh man. Emily, thank you so much. Thank you for friendship, for what you gave to so many people. Thank you for what you've given to me. Thank you for all the good times. Thank you for your love and your respect and your honesty. In the end, there is absolutely no hard feelings. I will always hold space for you, and I wish you absolutely the best in this world.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show, brother.
Yeah.
Hey, friend, thanks for listening to the show. And if you have any feedback for me about the show or any other guests that you'd want to see in the show, definitely shoot me a message. I love engaging with my audience and figuring out how I can provide the best value possible to the people listening to this show. Before you go, I only have one ask of you, and that would be to check out my 3 Tips Tuesday newsletter. It's 3 marketing tips every Tuesday, specifically for the health and fitness entrepreneur to help them attract new leads. If you press the link in the description, it'll take you directly to the archive of all my previous newsletters, and you can decide for yourself if it's something for you. If you end up finding it helpful, you can just sign up for the newsletter and you'll get it in your inbox every Tuesday. Thanks again, and keep hustling, my friends.